Hey everyone, RogueGold here. Welcome back to the Division 2. The next big update for the game, Red Horizon, is officially shadow dropping. It is set to be live in just a couple of hours from when I'm releasing this video. This was all announced just yesterday at Gamescom. We do have a full recap up for the Day 1 Division 2 panel. I'll link that down below. But among all of the crazy news that we got from that, it was confirmed that Year 8 Season 3 is dropping today. And so, although all of this is about to be playable for all of y'all out there, I still wanted to try and get one of these top 10 changes video done. Usually, new seasons can be a lot to sift through, and I know that these kinds of breakdowns help many of you digest what is new and what's coming up. So, that's what we're going to do here. Business as usual, only difference being that by the time you were done watching, or soon after, you can jump in and experience all of this for yourselves. You know the drill, timestamps are listed below so you can skip around to all 10 points. If this breakdown does end up helping you out, leaving a like on the video would be immensely appreciated. Subscribe to catch all of our new season coverage, but let's go. Alright, coming into number 1, we've got DC Cleaners. Now, this references a couple of different things, but overall, this is the theme for the new season. If you played last season, Into the Dark, you would know how all things were tied into the Dark Zones, new toxic hazards, the hyenas. Red Horizon's theme is fire, and I mean that literally. The Cleaners faction has come to the capital and set up shop in DC, and that's going to have both gameplay and environmental impacts. So, on the gameplay side, during this season, Cleaners can now occupy the open world, taking over control points and spawning in activities. Just like we saw in the last 2 seasons, they are going to be receiving their own unique kill squad this update called Company 95 that you can face off against in retaliations. The neat part to all of this, though, is that it is stated that as the season progresses, visually, we're going to be able to see the horizon of the skybox in DC become more and more engulfed and hazy, hence the name Red Horizon. And this progression over time will be accompanied by increased cleaner spawns, attacks, and just more happening in the world the further into Year 8 Season 3 that we get. So, a season revolving entirely around burning things, and that trend will continue into some of the new items that we are getting. More on that shortly. Before we get there, though, at number 2, we've got the Blackout Dark Zone. This is an all-new Dark Zone rule set entering the rotation. As far as I'm aware, it will share custody alongside the classic DZ, as for which one is active. The normalized and toxic should always remain accessible, but the idea behind Blackout is to push power to the maximum. Within this DZ, prototype gear will be enabled for the first time in PvP. This means that you will not only get the full benefit of bonus stats that rarity offers, but also the usage of your augments. That said, augments will have their own PvP variations, just as basically all talents do now. Those exact conversions and PvP values can be seen in this chart here. Because of this added power, however, the PvE challenges within this will be heightened as well. Whenever active, this zone will be permanently invaded, meaning that it will always feature the Black Tusk. These guys also got an increase to their durability after PTS feedback deemed them a bit weak. That said, on top of featuring other recent PvP DZ loot buffs, such as heroic quality drops, bonus item chances, and a new exotic component reward structure, the Blackout DZ will make the added risk worth it by offering chances for prototype items to drop. This chart lays out the drop rates for each enemy type, with bosses offering the highest odds. But yeah, although things may get pretty wild with augments factoring into PvP, I am interested to dive in here and see if the added reward can instill the same intensity that DZ Extraction used to have back in the day. Moving on to number 3, sticking in a similar realm, we've got PvP changes. Not too much to say here. If you've been following along with the Division 2 updates as of late, you'll know that PvP balance and improvements is finally something that we're seeing on a regular cadence, and Red Horizon will be no exception. The big ticket is that we're receiving the 3rd phase of global PvP balance. Keep in mind that phase 1 was gear, weapon, and exotic talents. Phase 2 more recently was set attributes, and now we're receiving the skills rebalance. So I'll leave this linked in the description below if you want to check it out, but via patch notes, we have a long list of what's planned here. This is broken down by comparing the PvE stats to the new PvP ones, showing each skill stat at each respective skill tier. There's a lot to digest here. That said, I know the highlights for me are the fact that the decoy at tier 0 will be noticeably weaker, and it will last for a much shorter time than previously, which was much needed. Also, the burn sticky bomb will have a noticeably longer cooldown at higher tiers, which only makes sense given how potent you can build it to be. PvP, so I'm very interested to see what kinds of impacts these changes will have. In addition, brand sets across the entire game are receiving pretty major updates with this season. We'll be covering that shortly, but it's worth noting that all of those new values have been tuned and properly scaled to operate consistently within PvP as well. At number 4, per usual, we have a new slate of seasonal modifiers. This time around, our modifiers will be directly tied in, at least thematically, to the season's narrative of the cleaners arriving in DC and the firestorm that's bringing. So, titled Under Pressure, this season's global modifier adds a reactive pressure gauge aside your HUD. This gauge can be built up by various actions, including simple kills, but gains the most amount of pressure the quickest by leaning into skill and fire usage. If not handled properly, though, this gauge can decay, and that happens if you remain out of cover for too long. It'll be worth maintaining it, however, as by building up your pressure, not only do you receive passive stats, which can be modified to be either status effects, signature weapon damage, or hazard protection, but high pressure thresholds are also a condition to activate your active modifiers. Of course, lots of details with these, but at a high level, Fiery Aura is this season's Zealot, allowing for high values of damage resistance, whereas Signed Shield Delivered gives big buffs to your signature weapons and shield usage, making for the ultimate combo using Firewall. And then of course there is a slew of passive modifiers to play around with, this time around broken into 2 categories of pressure and tools. Lots of ways here to tweak how the pressure mechanic works, ways to enhance your status and fire output, but we do have one fan favorite returning that I think many will be pleased to see, and that is Microwave Coils, which allows for pulse abilities to also gain a chance to ignite targets, making for some very fun gameplay moments. On to number 5, let's talk about the new items and gear we've got coming. As mentioned earlier, and as evident by the modifiers that we just looked at, everything this season is based around fire. Now, before covering what we are getting, it is important to note that no new brand set will be released this season, and that's because the devs have said that we've reached saturation in terms of the brand and stat combos available in-game. So no new brand sets will be released moving forward in the Division 2, but do stay tuned for the brand set changes section coming up, as they are making some big tweaks to the existing sets that we have. That said, we are of course still getting a new gear set called Ember Engine. This gives your applied statuses a chance to also burn a target, or if you apply burn to begin with, then it gets enhanced potency. The new exotic weapon for this season is the Fafnir shotgun, which according to the devs was fully inspired by the John Wick Dragon's Breath scene, and after some significant post-PTS buffs, I expect this thing to be quite strong, with high chances to ignite targets on hit, and some hefty additional amplified damage against ignited targets. The new weapon talent, called Boiling Point, has drawn much debate, with it nerfing your crit chance to 0% for the first 53% of your magazine, but then buffing it to 100% for the remainder. Some potentially interesting combos with tipping scales, I wager, if you can lean fully into crit damage across all of your rolls and mods. And then, finally, it is worth noting the Red Horizon will complete our roster of perfected armor talents, with 4 new named gear pieces coming, granting us souped up versions of Reassigned, Tag Team, Concussion, and Protector. We've teased it enough by now, so let's move on to number 6 with brand set changes. This is part of a larger PvE rebalance initiative that the devs are tackling this season. More on this in points 7 and 8, but a retooling of nearly every existing brand set the game has on offer is a big part of this equation. Now, before looking at the specific changes made, there were a few guidelines and objectives that the team had with this, again in light of what we mentioned in the prior section about how no new brands will be added to the pool moving forward. So those rules, if you will, included the removal of shock resistance, health, incoming repair, and swap speed from all brands, basically all the stats that the devs deemed as unpopular or overly niche. Protection from elites was added as a stat across a few brands, and as you'll see, in some pretty generous amounts. And then a few more things, such as realigning weapon damage bonuses to offer a 1 and 2 piece bonus for each class across the various brand options, the shifting of available threat stats, and the preservation of explosive damage, even though it does trend more niche. So, that said, I'll scroll through some of the brand changes on screen here. Blue core brands definitely won the biggest here, with sets like Gila and Bellstone now being fantastic tanking options, offering both threat and PFE. And then you'll notice that 1 and 2 weapon rule that we noted, with 12 and 24% bonus damage respectively being available for each class, oftentimes meaning the values have been buffed up over what they offered previously on brands such as Fenris, Unit Alloys, Overlord, and many more. So, all in all, some great changes here, and hopefully ones that lead to more viability and creativity with brand building. At number 7, let's then shift over to the gear set changes that are coming under this same umbrella. So, for this update specifically, the team stated that they wanted to focus on lifting up many of the red core gear sets that we have at our disposal, likely in an attempt to narrow the gap between Striker and everything else. That said, 2 non-red sets did make their way in, those being Ortiz Xero with some enhanced range and amp damage to ignited enemies, and the long-awaited True Patriot, receiving some pretty hefty number buffs on its bonus damage, enemy damage debuff, and healing values. Do note, however, that it was stated that blue and yellow core sets are planned for down the line, but they will apparently require some deeper changes beyond just number bumps to get them to where the devs would like for them to be at. Shifting over to red, however, again, like we said, a lot of this was done to give most non-striker sets a boost in power, and so not only are you seeing some of the lower usage rate sets such as Aces and Eights and Breaking Points receive some decent buffs, but even sets that already came close to competing with Striker are being lifted, notably with Tipping Scales receiving even higher crit damage off of its base 4-piece talent and the backpack amplifier, and Concentrated Company getting a similar treatment for its weapon damage bonus, and after testing many of these out, I think Concentrated may become a new fan favorite. If your team coordinates the stacking properly, you can build it up quite fast, and the results are devastating. This packs a punch. So, along the same lines as brand sets, some big new gear set viability is coming our way. Alright, and last but far from least, we held the controversy for the end. At number 8, we've got the Determined Nerf. So, although the vast majority of this rebalance effort is increases and buffs, and therefore has been received fairly positively, all of this does include one notable nerf, and it's left many displeased. In case you are unaware, the Determined talent, available across marksman rifles, and pistols, has been bugged for years. The talent is meant to function as its perfect version currently does, whereby you land a headshot kill, you gain 1 free headshot anywhere on the body that you hit, and then you must restart the loop. The standard version of Determined, however, has allowed for you to reset the chain off of that free headshot, if you will, and in combination with the Headhunter chest piece talent, which rewards massive bonus damage for repeated headshot kills, this was a combination that steamrolled through heroic content, even legendary in some cases, for years. Well, the devs have decided that they want to do something about it. Once Year 8 Season 3 goes live, Determined will no longer chain. You will only receive that 1 free headshot hit before you must score another real headshot to re-trigger things. In light of this, however, they are adding in a new exotic armor piece called the Iron Will, and this preserves the old Determined functionality, offering guaranteed headshot hits anywhere on the body every 2 seconds. It's usable with those same MMRs, rifles, and pistols. The caveat is that this armor piece is a chess piece, and as the devs explained, their main intent was to prevent the dominant Determined Headhunter combo. So, as I said, many are frustrated by this change after so long. The one upside, though, is that by offering Determined's functionality on a bespoke exotic, that now means that that ability type can be paired with exotic weaponry. And so, although matching damage values using high-end items will no longer be possible compared to that old combo, many people are theory crafting and tested on the PTS to confirm that items like the Dread Edict, the Prima Donna, and the Regulus exotic weapons will all benefit greatly from this. So, we'll see where it all lands in a couple of weeks' time once things have settled, but I felt it was important to point out that there is one big notable nerf alongside all of this change, and that is to Determined. Rest in peace. Well, there you have it, everybody. Those are the 8 biggest changes and additions to be aware of for Year 8 Season 3 Red Horizon. A jam-packed season. This video didn't even cover the new DLC and crossplay, which both look to be coming quite soon, but today's update alone brings a lot. Like all of the action back in DC, the new DZ, variant balancing changes. It's going to be a lot to sink our teeth into, but I cannot wait. At this point, I would love to get any and all thoughts or reactions that you guys have about what we have coming our way. What that piques your interest the most? What are you most looking forward to getting into? Let me know. I'll be curious to read through. Before we close out, have to give a major shout out and thank you to all of our channel members. I could not make these videos and do what I do without all of your ongoing support, so thank you so much for everything. But yeah, I will see you all very soon in Red Horizon. But until then, my friends, RogueGold. Ow. Oh! We just got a Ravenous! I might not be friendly. Let's go.
Coming to the Division 2.
Let's go!
And